All right, so in this video, I'd like to talk about the shadowy group in charge of HTML. They're not shadowy at all, and how HTML changes and what HTML5 actually means. I see a lot of confusion around this with students, and with good reason. HTML5 sounds like it's a version that you download or you install or you upgrade to, just like I don't know if you ever play video games. Civilization 5 is a discrete, separate thing from Civilization 4 or Halo 3 versus, you get what I'm saying, hopefully. HTML5 is a little bit different. If we actually go to MDN, this is their little blurb about it. HTML5 is the latest evolution of the standard that defines HTML. The term represents two different concepts. It is a new version of the language of HTML with new elements, attributes, and behaviors. And HTML5 also refers to a larger set of technologies. This is nothing you really need to care about right now, but it includes different technologies that help us build websites with 3D graphics and storing information in the browser, things that are technically not HTML. But we still call them HTML5, or people in the past have called them HTML5. This whole new set of things was called HTML5 or HTML5 and friends. So this makes it kind of confusing. The term HTML5 refers to new stuff in HTML, and it also refers to this big bundle of stuff for the browser that does include new HTML elements, but it also includes all of this stuff here. New stuff for CSS, new stuff around 3D graphics, upgrades for performance and enhancements. It's a lot of stuff, and it's not all HTML, so that can be very confusing. So when I say HTML5, I'm referring to just the latest evolution of the standard that defines HTML. So what am I saying standard? What does that mean? Why is it a standard that defines HTML? Well, the way that HTML works is that there is not one official copy that you download. We never install HTML. Instead, HTML is defined basically as a set of instructions for how HTML should work. There's a document called the standard, the HTML standard, that says, here is how HTML should work. Now, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to take these plans and actually implement HTML in a browser. So Google goes and looks at those plans, and they build HTML in their browser in Chrome. That's the house we see here. Mozilla does the same thing, and they build HTML, or they build Firefox, which is built on top of that HTML standard. Internet Explorer, all these different browsers and these companies are going to implement HTML based off of that standard. And we can actually see this standard. If you go to html.spec.whatwg, I usually just Google HTML spec, although frankly, you probably don't need to ever come here, but I like to show this when I'm teaching. This is a document that just explains, among other things, it details how HTML should work. So if we look at something like, let's scroll down a bit and look at the anchor element right there. What we get here is a bunch of details about how it should work. So there should be an attribute called href. It's the address of the hyperlink. There should be, what else? Here's some rules about it. If an A element has an href attribute, then it represents a hyperlink labeled by its contents inside the opening and closing tag. It even details what should happen when it's activated. When you click on it, follow the hyperlink or download the hyperlink created by that A element, blah, blah, blah. You don't really need to care about any of this, but my point in showing you this is to hopefully have you understand that this is just a document that explains how these elements should work and how HTML should work. Browsers then have to go and implement this. So when we say HTML5, it is not a version of something you download or install. It's just a version of this document. And this document includes new elements. As an example, the video element, the audio element, we've not seen those, but those are new-ish. They weren't around 15 years ago in HTML, and they're part of this document. So browsers then take that and implement it. They make it work in Chrome or in Firefox or in Edge or whatever browser you're using. So I think that's enough for now. You could have gotten along just fine without knowing any of this, but I do like to clear this up because I hear students talking about upgrading to HTML5 and things like that. That's not really at all what you do. Your browser and the company behind it, or the organization behind it, is going to implement features based upon the latest version of the spec, this HTML standard. And the other thing you should know is this doc type tag that we put at the top, this declaration. What this does is it indicates to browsers that this document uses HTML5 syntax, or it uses that version of the standard. But what's really confusing is that you could leave this off, or you can actually specify that nobody really does this, but you could specify that you want to use an older version, that this document does not contain HTML5. Maybe it's older. That will still be ignored. If you include elements in here like an audio or a video element, the browser's just going to recognize it. So this actually doesn't do a whole lot for us most of the time. It's just a way to flag to browsers that, yes, I'm using the latest and greatest in HTML in this document. So it's kind of confusing, right? It's not something that we can control as a user. There's this Quora post that I thought was interesting. How do you disable HTML5 in Chrome? You don't. There is no way to disable it. This is kind of what I was talking about, these other doc types that we can include. HTML 4.0.1 or 4.01 transitional, if you add this doc type to the top of your HTML document, it does not really change anything. It tells the browser what it should be expecting, but it won't turn anything off. It's just telling the browser what it should expect. So just keep that in mind. If you have room in there, this is not essential information. What is essential is this idea of the standard, of a specification that browsers then implement. All right, so next up, we'll get back to writing some code.